press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
In the last class, we are learning about the second chapter, that is hunting, gathering of, to growing food. In the last class, we already learnt about the hunters and gatherers, isn't it? Who were called as hunters and gatherers, and where they lived, and where they start, why did they move from one place to another place, and how they used the fire, etc. These are all we already learnt in the last class. Today we shall learn about a changing environment. A changing environment. A changing environment. Let us learn about this. Okay. A change means around 12,000 years ago. Around 12,000 years ago, the major changes, means the major climatic changes were held in all over the world. 12,000 years ago. Around 12,000 years ago, the climatic condition was changed all over the world. Not only the climatic condition was changed, the whole environment was also changed during this period. So, it led to the development of the grassland. So, this situation led to the development of the grassland, and also this led to the increase the number of animals. This led to the increase the number of animals that survived on the grass, especially deer, antelope, goat, sheep, cattle, etc. These animals were also increased in number. So, this situation led to those who hunted these animals. The persons who hunted these animals, now they start to follow them, means follow these animals. And also not only they followed these animals, and also they start to learning about these their food habits. They also start to learning about their food habits and also their breeding seasons. The people start to follow them and learning about their food habits and also their breeding seasons. So, this helped to the people to start thinking about herding and rearing. This helped the people to start thinking about herding and rearing of these animals themselves. So, at that time, the fishing also become one of the important thing on that time. Okay. Later, they start to farming and herding. Later, they start the farming and herding. Let us learn the beginning of farming and herding. Beginning of farming and herding. Farming means the beginning. Beginning of farming and herding. Farming means agriculture. Farming and herding. Farming means agriculture. Cultivate the grass and other grains, etc. Okay. And also the herding. Herding means rearing the animals in large number, means large scale. This is known as herding. Okay. Later, these people start to cultivate the land and also they start to herding, means they start to rearing the animals. Let us learn about that. Okay. Around 12,000 years ago, I already told the climatic condition and also the environment was also changed on that time, isn't it? So, then what happened, you know? This was the time when several grain bearing grasses grew in different parts of the subcontinent. In this time, the several grain bearing grasses were grown all over the continent, especially the wheat, the grains like wheat, barley, rice. In such of grains were start to grew all over the subcontinent. Then the men, women, childrens, they collected these grains for their food purpose. The men's, women's and also the children collected these grains for the food. And later they learnt where they grew. Later these peoples learnt where these grains were grew and when they ripened. When they ripened means ready for use. Ripened. When they ripened. Ripened means ready for use. They understand all these situations. So this may let them to think about growing of plants on their own. This may let them to think about growing plants on their own. Okay. In this way, people become farmers. In this way, our peoples become farmers. In this way, the peoples become farmers. Not only they become the farmers, and then they also start to domesticate the animals. They start to domesticate the animals in their shelters. They domesticated the animals in their shelters. Okay. So, which was the first animal to be tamed by these peoples? Do you know about that? Yes, the wild dog. The wild dog was the wild dog. The wild dog was the first animal tamed by these peoples. Tamed means domesticated by these peoples. Okay. Later they start to rear many other animals. Those were sheep, goat, cattle, pig, etc. First he tamed the wild dogs. Dogs were they first tamed. Okay, means domesticated. Later they start to domesticate other animals also. Those were sheep, goat, cattle, pig, etc. These are all the animals that were reared by these peoples. Okay, the peoples not only they domesticated these animals, they also protected these animals from the attacks by the other wild animals. They also protected them by the attacks of other wild animals. In this way, the gatherers and the herders, gatherers and hunters become the herders. In this way, the gatherers and hunters become the herders. Okay, herders. Okay, they reared the animals for the food purpose, for the food sake. Especially they reared the animals for the food sake or food purpose. They reared the more and more animals in this time. Okay, later they start a new way of life. Later these people start a new way of life. Let us learn about which factors that led to the new way of life. Okay, next we learn about a new way of life. A new way of life. New way of life. When the people start to plant a seed, let us learn which factors that led to the new way of life. Okay, when the people starts to plant a seed, it takes some time to grow, isn't it? When we start to plant a seed, it takes some time to grow, isn't it? Yes, this may be for several days, weeks, months, or in some cases some years, isn't it? So as a result, the people had to stay in same place for a long time. It led to the people stay a long time in the same place. Why did the people had to stay in the same places for a long time? For looking after the plants. They should look after the plants, no? For what purpose the people had to stay in a same place for a long time? The first one is to looking after the plants. To looking after the plants. Looking after the plants. Looking after the plants. Okay. And next one is weeding. Next one is weeding. Weeding, watering, weeding. Next one is watering. Watering that plants, and also driving away animals and birds. Driving away animals and birds. Animals and birds. For these purposes, the people start to stay in same places for a long time. Understood? The first one is to looking after the plants. We should looking after the plants, isn't it? And also weeding. Weeding means the operation removing the unless plant. Weeding means removing. The operation removing unless plants is called as weeding. And watering. Watering means we should put the water in those plants, isn't it? And then driving away animals and the birds. We should drive the animals and birds when these plants were growing. Okay. So for this purpose, the people start to stay in same places for a long time till the grain ripened. So later the grain had to be used carefully. Later they used these grains very carefully. Okay. Later the people learned to store grains. Later the people, when they grew the grains, later he start to store these foods or grains. For what purpose they store these grains? For two purposes they start to store these grains. One is food purpose. He start to store these grains. One is for the two purposes. One is for food purposes. For food purposes he start to store these grains. The another one is for seed purpose. Means to grow next year, isn't it? For that purpose they want the seeds. So for the seed purpose he also learned to store these grains. Okay. Where they store these grains? For the store they start, means they began making large clay pots. For the storing purpose they began making large clay pots. For the storing purpose these people began making large clay pots. They start to prepare, made large clay. Clay means mud pots. Were on that time they start to making the large clay pots. Then and also they start to wool baskets. Okay. And also dug pits into the ground. They dug the pits under the ground. Okay. In these places they start to store these grains. Dug the pits. Okay. In that pits they also store the grains. Okay, for storing purpose, they start to begin making large clay pots and also wood baskets and dug pits into the ground. Okay, these are the places they store the grains. Okay, next they also start to store the animals. They also not only they store the grains, they also start to store the animals. That is called as storing animals. Let us learn about the storing animals. Next, storing animals. Storing animals. For what purpose they store the grains? Especially for the food purpose, isn't it? And also seed purpose they store the grains. And let us learn why they start to store the animals. Okay, storing animals. So, in this situation, animals multiplied naturally. In this situation, animals multiplied naturally and they are looked after carefully. The animals multiplied naturally means they increase more and more number and they are looked after carefully. So, these animals provide milk and meat. These animals provide milk and meat. These animals provide meat and milk. Okay. These are some of the important source of food. The milk and meat are the important source of the food. So these were provided by these animals which were reared by these peoples. Okay. So whenever they were required, these animals start to provide meat and milk. Okay. As a result, they start to rear the animals for the food purpose. Especially the food purpose, they start to rear the animals from the beginning stage. Okay. So this is called as storing animals. Next, where we found the first farmers and the herderers. Let us learn about where we found the first farmers and the herderers. Okay. Next point, we shall learn about finding out about the about the farmers and herders. Farmers and herders. Farmers and herders. Okay. Where we found the first farmers and herderers. Okay. The archaeologists have found evidence of early farmers and herders all over the subcontinent. Especially the archaeologists. The archaeologists have found evidence of early farmers and herderers in all over the subcontinent. Okay, some of the most important ones are the northwest. We found in the northwest side, and the east part, and also the south part of India. In these places, we can find the first farmers and herders. Especially in the northwestern part of subcontinent. Northwestern part means now it is called as Kashmir. Okay, in the Kashmir region. And next we can observe these peoples, especially in the eastern side and also the South India. Okay. How can they find out whether these sites were settlement of farmers and herders? How can we find out whether these sites were the settlement of the farmers and herders? What were the at that time the scientists, what were the evidence? What were the evidence for that? Okay, the scientists study some of the evidence of plants and animals bones here. The scientists study evidence of plants and animal bones here, and also they found the remains of burnt grains. They also found the burnt grains in these places. Burnt grains. They may have been burnt accidentally or purposefully. We don't know about that. Okay, these grains may burn accidentally or purposefully. We don't know about that, but we found some of the grains burnt in these places. Okay, these are all the evidence of the these were the settlements of the farmers and the herders. Okay, and also so we know that a number of crops were, all these factors tells us a number of crops were grown by these peoples. A number of crops were grown in these peoples by the different parts of the subcontinents, and also they can identify the bones of different animals. The archaeologists were also find out the bones of different animals in these settlements. Okay, so these were some of the evidence that tells us about the first farmers and herders here. Okay, next we learn about which factors that they led to they start the settled life here. I already told the hunters and the herders, they were the wanderers. They not settled in one place. They moved from one place to another place. I already gave the reasons for what purpose they moved from one place to another place. But now they start to settle life. They start to stay in one place. Okay, let us learn why they start the settled life. Then that is we called as towards a settled life. Towards a settled life. Towards a settled life. Towards a settled life. The archaeologists have found traces of huts and houses. The archaeologists found the traces of huts and houses. Huts are the houses of these peoples. Houses of these peoples at some sites. For example, especially the Bursham. In the Bursham, B-U-R-Z-A-H-O-M, Bursham. This was the place. Now it is in Kashmir. Okay. In this place, in this settlement, the archaeologists found the huts or house of these peoples. Okay. These people built a pit houses. These peoples built a pit houses. Pit houses means they were underground houses. They are underground houses means they were dug in the ground. They were dug in the ground, and also they have the steps. Okay. So, and also many archaeologists found the cooking hearths both inside and outside of these huts. The archaeologists found cooking hearths. Cooking hearths means vessels. Hearths means vessels, pots. Cooking hearths. We also found the cooking hearths here. So, these cooking hearths were both inside, and we can observe these cooking hearths inside and outside of these huts or the houses. It means, it shows It shows the peoples used these huts indoor and outdoor according to the weather. According to the weather, they used these huts outside and indoors, inside and outside. Okay, means in the rainy season, they cooking inside the house. In the summer season, they may cooking in the outside. Okay, so we also found the cooking huts here. Not only we find the cooking huts here, they also used many types of tools, especially the stone tools and also the bone tools they were used. We can also observe these tools in these settlements or the sites. Okay, they used the stone tools and bone tools. Stone tools, and also we can observe the bone tools here. So especially they used the stone tools. They used the stone tools. These stone tools were polished. And also they gave the fine cutting edges. They have the fine cutting edges. This type of stone tools we can found in these settlements or in these sites. Okay, and also they used the mortar and pestles for grinding grains. They used the mortars, and also they used the mortars and pestles. They also used the mortars and pestles. For what purpose they used the mortars and the pestles? For grinding the grains. For the grinding the grains, they used the mortars and the pestles. Okay. And also the many kinds of earthen pots have been found. And also many kind of earthen pots. Earthen pots means clay pots were found in this region. Okay. There were among them some of were decorated. Among these earthen pots, some of these pots were decorated, and also they were used these pots for two purpose. I already told, storing purpose, and also they used these pots for the cooking purpose. Especially they used these pots for cooking grains like rice, wheat, etc. Okay, for this purpose they also used these clay pots. Okay, and also so this situation on that time they began weaving cloths. So not only they used the clay pots, and also they start weaving cloths. They used the different kinds of materials to materials to weaving cloth. They start to weaving cloth. For the weaving cloths, they use the different kinds of materials. Okay. In this situation was not found everywhere, means all over the subcontinents. This situation was not found everywhere. Everywhere means all over the subcontinent. In some areas, means in many areas, men and women still continued their hunting and gathering food. In this situation also, in some areas, the men and women still continued the hunting and gathering food, and elsewhere people adopting farming and herding slowly over several thousand years. Okay. So in this way, slowly the farmers, the gatherers and hunters, they start farming and herding. Okay. Next, let us learn about the first, one of the earliest village. Let us learn about the one of the earliest village, and also where the first time the wheat and barley were grown, isn't it? Let us learn about that, a village, one of the oldest village. Okay, let us learn about that, the village. Which was that village? That is Mehergarh. Mehergarh was the one of the oldest village. Let us learn about that village, that is called as a closer look, living and dying of Mehergarh. A closer look. Let us learn about learn about a closer look. A closer look. Closer look. Living and dying in Mehergarh. Living and dying. Living and dying in Mehergarh. In Mehergarh. Let us learn about the living and dying system in Mehergarh. Okay. This site is located in the fertile plain. This site means the Mehergarh site is located in the fertile plain near Bolan Pass. This village, this place is near Bolan Pass. Bolan Pass is very near to the Bolan Pass, and also we can found this site especially in the fertile plain. Okay, it is one of the most important route into Iran. It is one of the most important route into Iran. Okay, so this was the place where the people learnt first time they learned to grow barley and wheat. The barley and wheat were first time. The barley and wheat were first time grown in the place called Mehergarh. Okay, not only they grow barley and wheat at first time in Mehergarh, and also they reared the sheep and goats here at first time. They reared the sheep and goat. The sheep and goat. The sheep and goats were the animals were reared at first time in Mehergarh. Understood? The Mehergarh is famous for that place. First time they grow the barley and wheat. Not only they grow the barley and wheat at first time in Mehergarh, and also they reared at first time the people, the hunters or gatherers, the first time they reared the sheep and goat in these places. For that purpose, the Mehergarh is one of the important place and also the one of the oldest village on the earth. Okay. So, we can observe many animals bones here. Means the archaeologists found many animals bones in these places. Okay, especially the wild animals bones were also we found in this settlement. Means especially the wild animals like deer, pig, etc. The wild animals like pig and deer. Deer bones were also found here, and also some of the bones of sheep and goat. The bones of sheep and goat were also found in this region. Okay, in this way, the first time barley and wheat were grown in this area, and also the sheep and goat were reared at first time in Mehergarh. So, this has become one of the important place. Okay, not only it become famous for the rearing of animals and grow the wheat and barley, and also we can found some of the houses here, and also we found some of the houses in Mehergarh. So, especially the houses which were built in this place, they are rectangle and square shape. The houses which were built in these places, those were square what were the shape? Square and rectangular shape. Square or rectangular. Rectangular shapes. We can found the square or rectangular shapes houses in this region. Okay. So each houses had 4 or more compartments. These houses have 4 or more compartments. Compartments have these compartments means rooms. Okay, the houses which are in the Mehergarh, they have the 4 compartments or 4 means 4 rooms or more than rooms. We can find out the rooms here. So some of the houses were used to live and some houses were used to storing purpose, means to store the food or grains. This purpose were also they used these rooms or houses here. Okay. So in this way the houses were also one of the important things we can observe in this region. Okay. Next, not only we found the houses here, it is also very important place for the we can observe the burial sites here. Burial sites here. We can also observe the burial sites here. So they gave the more importance to the dead person here, means the Mehergarh, the people, if the people die, when the people die, their relatives and the friends gave more respect to them, means the people who died, the relatives and the friends gave more respect to that person. So people look after them, they believed that they are in some form of life after the death. They believed that there is some form of the life after the death. So means that when the people died, the relatives and the friends gave more respect to that person. Why did they give the more respect? Means the people believed that there is some form of life after the death. Okay. For that purpose, burial is one of the important arrangement on that time. Burial is one of the important arrangements. Burial, B-U-R-I-A-L. Burial is one of the important arrangement was held in Mehergarh. Okay. So several burial sites have been found in Mehergarh. Several burial sites we can found in Mehergarh. So in one instance, the dead person was buried with goats. In some incidents means in one instance the dead person was buried with goats. Okay, which were probably meant to serve as food in the next world. Why did they burn sheep or goat with him? They think this food, they want the food, this which were probably made to serve as food in the next world. So this sheep serve the food in the next world to that purpose. For that purpose they buried the goats with that dead person. Okay, in this way, for all these reasons Mehergarh was become very important sites. Okay, this was the close look to about the Mehergarh. Okay, so let us will on next what happened and how they start the settled life in the next chapter. Okay, once again I will repeat the points. Okay, we already learnt who were called as herders and hunters, isn't it? So later slowly the herders and hunters become the farmers. They start their important life, means they start to settle life here. So when they start the settled life, when around 12,000 years ago the climatic condition was started to change, means the warm climatic condition formed. So when the warm climatic condition was formed, so this led to the increase the farmland here, it developed the grassland. It led to the development of the grassland. When the grassland was developed, it led to the increase the number of animals, especially the animals which are survived on the grass. For example, deer, antelope, goat, sheep, cattle, etc. Isn't it? So when the animals increase, then this situation led to the hunters to know about these animals. They start to know about these animals, means they start to follow them, learning about their food habits, and also they start to learn their breeding seasons, isn't it? This situation helped the people start to think about the herdings and rearings animals themselves. So on that time fishing also become one of the important thing on that time. Later they start the farming and herdings. I already told farming, herd and herding were also started from these peoples. Why did they starting the herding and the farming? Because the around 1200 years ago, the several grain bearing grasses grown, for example wheat, barley, rice, etc. These grain bearing grasses grow all over the country, means in different part of the subcontinent. As a result, the people start to collect these grains for the food purpose. Okay. Not only they start to collect these food, and also they start to learn where these grains grow and when they ripened, isn't it? And also this led to the think of this may lead them to think about the growing plants their own. So in this way the peoples, especially the hunters and gatherers, become the farmers. When they become the farmers, they start to plant the seeds. Okay, when they start to plant the seeds, at that time they start to live a long time in that places. For what purpose I already told. So watering purpose, to look after those plants, and also protect those plants from the animals and the birds, and also they weeding purpose, watering purpose, they stayed in that places for a long time. Means in this way he start his new way of life. Okay. Later they start to collect these grains, means store, and also they start to learn store the grains, especially they store these grains for the two purpose, that is one of the food purpose and the other one is seed purpose. They start to store these grains. Okay. Later they also start to store the animals again for the food purpose, means the animals produce the meat and milk. When the people wants the meat and milk, they provide the milk and meat to the peoples. As a result, the people not only store the food items and not only store the grains, and also they start to store the animals also. So next we find out the first farmers and herders, especially in the northwestern side of India and east and south Indian part. There are so many evidence the archaeologists found. I already explained about that. Okay. And also they used the stone and bone tools here, and they were also start to build the huts and houses in some places, isn't it? Especially Bursham is very important place. We can found the huts and houses of these types of peoples. Okay. So the archaeologist was also find the cooking hearths here. They used these cooking hearths for the cooking food, cooking grains, especially grains. They used these pots or the hearths here. Okay. And also they used the stone and bone tools. And also they used the clay pots not only for the cooking purpose, they also used these pots for the storing purpose also. Next we already learnt about the Mehergar. Mehergar was one of the important place because in this place we can found the first time the people start to grow barley and wheat, and also the first time the people rear the sheep and goat here. It was one of the earliest village, isn't it? We can also observe the huts and houses here. The huts and houses which were in this region, in this side, that is square or rectangular shape, isn't it? And also we can observe the some burial sites here. The dead person here, the dead person was paid the more respect by his friends and relatives. And also we can observe the many burial sites here. Here means at Mehergar. Okay, in one instance the dead person was buried with goats, which were probably meant to serve as food in the next world, isn't it? So we shall stop here. We shall continue the next one. Okay, thank you.